Welcome back, Past Paradise, the fabled love life of Frank Sinatra, whose charm and skill captivated audiences and Hollywood's most beautiful ladies, is revealed in today's enthralling episode. In 2024, we learn about Sinatra's whirlwind relationship with Marilyn Monroe, his burning love with Ava Gardner, and Grace Kelly's refined charm. We'll also discuss his lifelong relationship with Mia Farrow and hidden affairs with other gorgeous ladies of the golden age of entertainment. This star-studded look at Sinatra's life will highlight his love highs and lows, revealing the man behind the music. Relax and prepare for a fascinating journey through Frank Sinatra's hidden lovers and amazing relationships. Frank's initial step across the aisle. Frank's childhood girlfriend, Nancy Barbato, was his first taste of married happiness. When they were still teens in 1934, he first encountered Nancy. They went to the same summer camp, and their meet cute was straight out of a movie. He was singing love songs when he saw her for the first time on the porch. They got married 5 years after their first love affair. Nancy Jr., Frank Jr., and Tina were the couple's children born during their 12-year marriage. But continuous accusations of Frank's infidelity dogged their marriage, and Frank finally moved on from Nancy to another woman. A joyful beginning to your marriage. But their marriage was wonderful before Frank became famous. Following their idyllic beginning, Nancy encouraged Frank to reach the top. She worked as a secretary to make ends meet, and Nancy used to sew his clothes for him before he had the money to buy bespoke suits. In addition, she prepared a traditional Italian dinner every night for him to enjoy at home. They were pleased despite financial difficulties. Nonetheless, she gradually disappeared as Frank gained popularity. The disintegration of his initial marriage. She updated her outfit and repaired her teeth to fit his new character. However, nothing changed as a result. It was immediately apparent that she didn't quite fit into his new existence, and he continued to refer to her as Big Nancy. As a result, Sinatra began dating others who did the same and did not try to hide it. It was understandably difficult for Nancy, who called the dissolution of their marriage almost unbearable. They took a sabbatical in 1946, but Sinatra didn't think it was enough, and 4 years later, they called it quits. She persisted in being in his life. Even though Nancy called her marriage most unhappy, she supported Sinatra until their split. She ensured he was cared for, giving his employees the recipes for his favorite foods and serving as his confidant for life. There are rumors that he would often show up unannounced to play with the kids, have a home-cooked supper, and seek his counsel when things weren't going well in his personal life. Perhaps as a result, Nancy never married again and remained single until she died in 2018 at the age of 101. Lana Turner to Ava Gardner. Sinatra remarried within a week of their official divorce, and this time it wasn't a low-key union. He wed Ava Gardner, a well-known Hollywood actress. She wasn't, however, the first Hollywood actress to notice Sinatra's renowned blue eyes. He even left his wife for the actress Lana Turner during their highly publicized romance while still married. However, he quickly reconciled with her when things didn't work out. He called his short relationship with the wealthy divorcee carnal, implying that she preferred making love to having conversations. Sinatra was enamored when he first saw her in The Postman Always Rings Twice and said he just had to have her. His sex with Judy Garland during 6 years. There was Judy Garland to add to his collection of actresses. He truly did have a type. She went through breakdowns and divorces throughout their 6-year intermittent relationship, and it seemed that she would resort to Frank for private get-togethers during these trying times. "You said today that you'd be negligent," she wrote in a love letter to him after one of their covert meetings. "But, my dear, everything is so insignificant in light of the immense joy you have brought me. I will never, ever forget the hours we've spent together." Despite their shaky beginnings, she seemed to admire her careless boyfriend. Frank's second marriage attempt. Gardner was the one he committed to and married, notwithstanding his relationships with Turner and Garland. Their relationship was well known from the beginning, as he had left Nancy for her. Despite meeting in 1943, they didn't begin their covert relationship for another 5 years. They were substantially able to conceal their relationship for a further 2 years, and in 1950, they were caught on camera at a restaurant, which resulted in widespread media coverage. As his career was starting to fade, the publicity catapulted Sinatra back to prominence. But Gardner was still a budding actress and was often in the news, although not always for the best reasons. Critics reacted negatively to his romance with Gardner. Frank had already decided to marry Gardner before they met. He said, "I'm going to marry that woman," as soon as he saw her picture. However, this relationship proved unpopular. When Sinatra and Ava initially started dating, Ava was also married to actor Mickey Rooney, another well-known person. Furthermore, this wasn't Gardner's first controversial relationship. She had a reputation on par with Frank's. Frank was her third husband, even though she was just 28 when they were married. She also had a history of cheating on her husbands. Gaining strength from Angie Dickinson. After failing to get Gardner back, he quickly moved on and began seeing Angie Dickinson, another Hollywood celebrity, which surprised everyone. They got acquainted in 1953 while working together on Dickinson's first program, The Colgate Comedy Hour. Despite the lack of spark initially, their relationship persisted when she portrayed his wife in Ocean's 11 7 years later. Then for 20 years, the two had a casual on-again, off-again romance. Their friendship lasted even longer. He had a relationship with a girl of his best friend. Another Hollywood actress, Lauren Bacall, was one of Frank's most contentious partners. Their liaison began when her husband, Humphrey Bogart, was hospitalized due to a disease that would ultimately claim his life, which is why it was so taboo. In actuality, they fell in love when Frank was consoling her. However, the underlying reason she resorted to Frank in the first place was because of their tight relationship. Hence, this affair constituted a violation of trust on both sides. Some people think that's why Frank requested her to keep their engagement a secret, given that happened just after Bogart passed away. But of course, it was leaked, and Sinatra ended their relationship thinking Bacall was the one who had revealed the information. Marilyn Monroe extended her friendship. Finding a pair more famous than Frank Sinatra and Marilyn Monroe would be difficult. Legends in their own right, they were also close friends, so close that they shared a home for a while. It is said that Monroe seduced Sinatra over breakfast one day, but the pals remained friendly through their separate, very public divorces. Soon the two started dating, and in 1961 he proposed in keeping with Sinatra's custom. The most iconic couple in Hollywood. Before the proposal, the pair had a passionate relationship. They allegedly spent many evenings together and had bubble baths throughout their passionate relationship that began as a light-hearted romance in the 1950s and continued into the 1960s. However, she rejected his offer even after stating, "If I have any problems, there's only one person I know can help, Frankie." As everyone knows, Sinatra could never remain unmarried for long, and he proposed to Juliette Prowse again in 1962, barely a year later. Though their romance was over, their friendship endured. Given how close Frank was to Marilyn, even after they announced their engagement, everyone was taken aback. Their relationship endured despite their breakup, and it was because of this intimacy that he was able to detect her poor health. A week after Marilyn's death, Frank was devastated and confided in a friend, declaring, "No one can say I didn't love her." Unfortunately, though, given their relationship, her ex-husband, Joe DiMaggio, wouldn't let him attend her funeral. Sinatra's security guard, Joe Langford, described him as alarmed at how depressed he seemed. He did everything he could to try to bring him out of it. One more day, one more engagement. Though his friends were skeptical of the relationship and thought Sinatra was rebounding from Marilyn, one of his Rat Pack partners, Sammy Davis Jr., even remarked, "I do think it had to do with Marilyn in some way, maybe trying to break from her a little." And it seems he was right, because the engagement lasted only 6 weeks before they called it off, with Juliette remarking that, after a few drinks, he could be very difficult. Sinatra unexpectedly proposed to the dancer Juliette Prowse, whom he met while filming the movie Can Can. his most improbable pairing to date. Some of Sinatra's previous romances may have shocked people because they happened so quickly or while he was still married, but this time the shock came right before the match. In 1966, at the age of 50, Sinatra married actress Mia Farrow, who was only 21 years old and younger than Frank's daughter, Nancy. When they went to Vegas to tie the knot, everyone wondered why such an unlikely couple would get married. His young wife became boresome quickly. Though she called him Charlie Brown, and he called his new bride Angel Face, the rest of the world called them far less flattering names. Their age gap was a common source of criticism. Farrow's mother even said, "If he marries anyone, it should be me." Others focused on her short hair, with Frank's former partner, Gardner, remarking about the match, "I always knew Frank would end up in bed with a boy." The real issue started when Farrow joined the Doubters and grew weary of her elder husband. Frank became more and more dominant. In an attempt to rein in her independence, Frank limited her to one film per year. But when she was offered the lead role in the 1968 hit Rosemary's Baby, she couldn't resist. Despite being told not to take the part, she took it anyway. That was the final straw for him, and he served her with divorce papers on the set of the very same film. Frank had previously displayed some controlling behavior when he was engaged to Prowse. It was later revealed that he ended their brief engagement because she refused to quit her career and dedicate herself to being his wife. Mia never forgot her initial adoration. Despite this bitter ending to their marriage, the two managed to stay friends after their 1968 divorce, and because Farrow was still so young, she quickly moved on to a series of high-profile relationships, including those with music mogul Andre Previn and most famously director Woody Allen, who later got married to her adopted daughter, a move that has drawn criticism from the public and Farrow herself. Because of their close relationship, Sinatra was quick to publicly support Farrow and come to her aid. After Sinatra died in 1998, Farrow said, "I felt closer to him than I've ever felt to anyone," and acknowledged that he was, in fact, the love of her life. Sinatra persisted in courting younger girls. Irene Tsu, who was in her 20s and whom he had met while both in Miami shooting different projects, was one of the younger women that Sinatra continued to date despite the controversy surrounding his relationship with Farrow. Some say that Tsu was just another rebound because it is said that he asked Tsu, who was many years his junior, on a date just as his marriage to Farrow ended. Either way, he whisked her off to the California desert and a spark was ignited. An exciting beginning for the Tsu affair. It was, as always with Sinatra, far from an easy affair. They had met months earlier when Frank asked her out after a chance meeting in Beverly Hills. On the day of their first date, he called Tsu and said, "Baby, I don't know if you heard, but my divorce has been announced, and there's paparazzi all over my property. I'm heading out to the desert. I want you to come with me." Captivated by his notorious voice and reputation, Irene went shopping like crazy before their sultry retreat. A familiar finish after a magical start. When Frank and Irene returned from their magical weekend in the desert, she took charge of Mia Farrow's old room and gave it her personal touch by painting it buttercup yellow instead of pink. But soon after, Frank's old habits returned, and Irene wrote in her 2020 memoir, "He was very political, and I was not at all savvy about that. Thus, we didn't really engage in many in-depth conversations." She was always eclipsed by Sinatra despite her gradual ascent to stardom. He lived in constant strain and suffered from sleeplessness. A royal event featuring Grace Kelly. One of Sinatra's most notorious relationships was with Grace Kelly, the actress he starred with in High Society and The Philadelphia Story. Kelly was an actress, of course, but she was more than just a Hollywood star. She was also a princess after marrying Prince Rainier of Monaco, and Frank was good friends with her. Frank didn't let this friendship stand in the way of having an affair with Kelly during their marriage, visiting her under the pretext of helping the princess with charitable work, but no one was duped. Frank had a reputation, but Kelly did too, with Sinatra being just one of her fabled men on the side. Frank's last and fourth step across the aisle. Though he had been in the spotlight for several decades, Sinatra's career took off in his 50s when he joined the Rat Pack. Perhaps this is why, even at the age of 58, he still won over women, including Barbara Marx, a Las Vegas showgirl whom he saw working with Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, and the gang at the Riviera Casino in 1957. He reportedly called her saying, "Hey Blondie, come over here, join us." But she ignored him, telling her horrified friends, "I don't want to deal with drunks." The age of Barbara Marx. Since Barbara was already married to one of the illustrious Marx brothers, Zeppo, her friends encouraged her to talk to Frank, but she wasn't interested in his fame. Frank's friends, on the other hand, said anyone who met Frank Sinatra would have to have sparks because he is a flirt, and there's no way to avoid that flirtation. And they were right. Barbara soon gave up fighting their connection and moved out of state to be with him in 1973. Frank had at last found his match. When Frank Sinatra met Barbara, who went by the name Lady Blue Eyes in her memoirs of the same name, it was the case of fourth time lucky for him. 3 years after divorcing Zeppo Marx, the two were married, and they remained together for 22 years until Sinatra's death at 82 in 1998. This was by far the longest marriage of Frank Sinatra and the only one that did not end in divorce. Barbara called Frank very romantic. As his fame soared in his late 80s, she supported this new wave in his career. Frank spent his life dabbling in love and success. He didn't truly peak with both until he was almost 90. The other women in his life. Frank's eldest daughter, Nancy Jr., has always spoken of him fondly and praised him as a father despite his mixed reputation. She recalled that he would phone them daily when she was away, and that we always knew that when push comes to shove, he'd be there for us if there were a choice. These two ladies, Nancy and Tina, were the ones he truly loved the most.
If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon